This is KD0RVY, and we have the third installment of our antennas that we're doing. And this is the one I told you about that's going to be a little bit different. It's not going to be a J-pole antenna. This is actually a directional antenna. And what we have here is, this is going to be our platform. This is just an aluminum arrow shaft. And over here you can see that I still have the fletching on this one, and that was intentional because I will be removing these, but I wanted to show you what I did to remove them, what I used, which did not remove any of this printing on here, which I think is probably done with laser. I'll show you how to remove these and get all the glue off and all that if you're kind of picky like I am and want everything to look perfect. This is a spin-off of a design that is online and floating around. Unfortunately, I did not grab the call letters for the person responsible for the basic concept of this, but whoever they are, you know, they should get credit for it, so I'll try to remember to post that up in my comments, and then you can also use that as reference too if you want. So there have been a few changes in this version of it. They're not anything I've seen done yet. These are kind of ideas I've had. A few things were kind of accidental, and you know, that's where some of the greatest ideas come from. So we'll go ahead and get started here. First off, I want to point out that I am actually using two arrow shafts here. The main concept, or there is a YouTube video. If you do a search for backpack Yagi antenna, I believe is what you could use. He uses, and he also does give credit to the person who came up with this the main concept behind this design. But the video, the guy in the video uses an arrow shaft and a fishing pole. Now, I wasn't against that idea. However, I also didn't have a fishing pole around the house that was worth scrapping. What I ended up doing was grabbing two of these arrow shafts, which are relatively cheap. This is just an Easton Realtree Hardwood's green. What I found out by accident, which actually works out pretty slick, is that as I was holding these two together, I was sitting there thinking, I was like, wow, what can I use to hold that together like that? And as I was looking at it, I kind of, you know, put end to end or side to side together, and I don't know if you're going to be able to tell on the camera or not, but if you can, one of those is a little bit smaller in diameter than the other one. And what ended up happening in this little moment I had was finding out that one of these goes right into the other one. So I now did not have to come up with a way to butt the ends together and find out how to hold them. The other part of that discovery was that these apparently have different model numbers. I thought I'd grabbed these arrow shafts out of the same bin. I don't know if it was at Walmart or what. They both say XX75, but over here, one says 2315, and I think that's a series number or something, and the other one says 2117. So I also noticed that when put side by side and making sure that the one end is flat, now I did cut a little bit off of this one here, but even still it's longer than the other one, because I moved this piece and along with the metal on this end of the shaft, so this actually would have been like out to here. So even though they appear to be the same, they are actually different shafts, but it's kind of worked into my favor. So the reason for the two shafts is mostly for storage, because the idea behind this is we will be Later on today, I'm going to be going to my friend's machine shop and using her drill press to drill in the holes that I need, and that is going to house our elements here. And let me show you those. So, you know, I do some of this work ahead of time so that way you guys don't have to watch me do everything. But, you know, most of this is pretty simple stuff. Another pointer or tip here. First off, this element here, these are the ones, they're going to be side by side off of this part of the shaft here, and they're actually going to sit like this, okay? And the shaft is, you know, of course going to sit like this, and then they'll be going through those two holes there, and in the end, one alligator clip coming off of the coax is going to clip onto this one, and another alligator clip coming off the coax is going to clip onto this one, okay? This is our driving element. So now the wire that you will find in the plans, if you look online, is going to suggest you to use 0.025. Now, not saying that that's the wrong way to go. It seems like it works. It seems like you know, that people are following that plan. But when I actually went into the hardware store inside, it looks really flimsy. I would be kind of afraid of you know, if the wire accidentally got bent or something and it putting a crimp in the wire. This isn't the thickest stuff either, but this is almost twice as thick as that 0.025. So after looking at it, and for, I think I got it at Ace Hardware, I think I spent probably $3 on a package of 5, it was either 4 or 5 3-foot pieces. You will need 4 though, so you know. And in the end, I ended up going the thicker route because holding up that 0.025 stuff, it seemed like it had too much of an arch when you would hold it up, and I wasn't sure that design-wise that was the best way to go. So I decided to, you know, to go to the thicker stuff, which is 0.047. In addition, this may not seem important at first, but it comes in this tube. Now, the 0.025, at least the hardware store, the Ace Hardware that I went to, it did not come in a tube with the 0.025. The reason I wanted the tube was for this piece right there. This is the piece that goes on the end of the tube as just kind of a cap, okay? Just a little rubber like nipple or something. So it just goes on the end of the cap. And that was what I wanted. In addition to some thicker wire, so it seemed like a no-brainer to me to go that route. So, anyways, off of that tangent, there's little black pieces here, okay? If any of you have watched the 2-meter J-pole using the ladder line, this might look familiar, because when you cut off the ladder line to strip the wires, you're going to end up with these long pieces here on the side. So what I did is I had one piece that wasn't attached to this to all this plastic, you know, so I had something like this, and what I did is I slid it on there, and once I got the size I was kind of looking for, which is about 8 or 9/10 of an inch. It's not exact, but so figured out, you know, measure out about an inch, and then cut it off, and then I slid it on to the end of this rod here. We'll put these pieces on the ends of these two. There's technically 4 elements total, so that'll go on the end of those two. Then we need to create, and I will be able to shoot a video with a little bit wider, or back a little bit further, so you can see everything on what's going on and at the scale that it's going on. This one here, this is a 36-inch element. These two here are 19.35 inches, okay? Each element has roughly about that 1 inch worth of the ladder line lead, the plastic for it, has 1 inch of that stuff. So this sits right in the middle of this 36-inch piece, okay? Keep in mind, these come in 3-foot lengths. So put the middle of this plastic in line with the middle of this this rod here. Lastly, we have a, I don't know if you'll be able to see all this or not, but we have a 41 inch. That's about as far over to that side as I can go. So you'll notice that this, and if you can see this on my left side here, those look a little bit different. What I did is, because it's 41 inches, I had to add a 5-inch segment. Now, because I knew I had to grow it 5 inches, I also needed to add some material for overlap for soldering, so that way I could join the two of them and space them out the 5 inches. Considering that this is probably steel, I'm assuming it's steel because it was kind of, I mean, it's not hard to cut, but it does require more pressure than a soft metal. So when you do look for the stuff at the hardware store, it's called music wire. Some people also call it hobby wire. So when you go and you're trying to look for this, say that you want, you know, 0.025 or 0.047 music wire or hobby wire. But what I did here is I wasn't sure if I could solder this, so I wasn't going to attempt it and go through all the hassle of trying to make it work. So I decided for the simpler option first. Just so happened I had some really small, thin heat shrink here. Just had it, you know, laying around at the bench here. And so I pulled out the smallest piece I had, which was this, and decided to give it a shot. So I created a 1-inch overlap on both sides, which creates my 5-inch extra that I needed to expand this out, getting my 41 inches. And then what I did is I put the heat shrink on this, and it is actually on there pretty good. So I may not even try to do anything permanent. I actually like how this turned out, and it looks really good. Which I'm, you know, as I mentioned, a big fan of. I like everything I do to try to look as aesthetically pleasing as I can. So this also looks really good. So these are the 4 pieces that we need. So if I don't put up a link to the plans, I'm going to kind of go through this right now. But this is the one that's going to be closest to you on the back end of the antenna. This one is going to be 41 inches. These two here, you know, the feed lines are going to go right here. These don't need to be spaced apart too far. This is probably about how far they're going to actually be once I get them into the arrow shaft. So they're probably going to be about that far. And these are 19.35 inches. And then the front one is just a 36 inch, so you don't even have to cut that. You just get your piece on there, and that one's good to go. So I will move these aside now. When we join the two shafts together, and especially now that I've done what I've done, when I get them, these ones didn't have tips on them or anything, which was fine. I didn't want them with tips. So they're open on the one end already, and this one, it's open on both ends. Now, the idea behind this is that when these are, you know, when the one is in the other one, these elements for the antenna will actually go in here for storage. So you can see how this one goes in there. And then we'll also take, for the sake of the video here are the 2 smaller ones here. So go ahead and we'll put those in here. And then we have the 36-incher, and that's going to go in there. So this is going to allow us, I'm going to go ahead and compact this as much as I can until I feel that longer one hit my finger. Actually, I do have a line marked on here too, so that way I know where it goes to. So when these are being stored in here, I don't have the actual measurement of this now, but it's just going to be, you know, roughly about, I don't know, 41.5 inches total. So when these get put in there, this just so happens, I was hoping it would actually fit over the outside of this, but I don't know if it's better or not. It actually does fit perfectly through the inside. So that is going to act as my cover so that when I'm carrying this, and it will be glued into place, I got to figure out what I want to use to adhere to that. I do have some model glues and super glues and all sorts of stuff, so we'll see how it works. But the idea behind this is that this is going to cap off that end so that way my rods don't come out. And then when I'm ready to use it, what's going to happen is I can take this off, and then once you're ready to use the antenna, what you can do is go ahead and join the two back together. I don't know, this seems really repetitive. So get the two of them back together, and obviously this is going to compact a little bit more than it was before. So once you get that like that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill this in such a way that this the one shaft is going to be inside the bigger shaft, and I'm going to drill my holes, which I do have marked and might be rubbing off by now. Oh no, still got them. So I've got my two holes there. I've got one way over here, which you may not be able to see, plus I've got one right here. What's going to happen is the elements are taken out of the storage in the space in the shaft here, and then this can compact more, and the holes, I'm going to make it so that the holes will line up once I've got this in the other. And that just allows me to kind of keep everything together instead of having to, you know, pull it apart, throw away, you know, one shaft off to the side, put the elements in addition to having this extra shaft in there. It should add to the actual rigidity of the whole thing together, and especially once we get those elements in there. And that's where these black things come into place. So what's going to happen is when I go and I drill my holes, these will go in to the holes like this, okay, and then they're going to sit like that. And so the black piece just adds a little extra thickness to it, you know, and not only that, but to prevent the metal on metal contact between this and this. Because if you think about this, now if we brought in that coax and we got one alligator clip going here, one alligator clip going to the other one, and both of them have metal on metal contact, well, all of a sudden we got a shorted connection, which we obviously don't want. So that's the other reason for this, in addition to adding some extra material to be able to put into the holes that we make and create a much tighter bond. So that's that. Now this is the pieces that I had removed. You know, this is the tip without this in there, so you know, this just goes in like that all the way. And so that's what I removed from the end of the arrow. You know, I pulled this out first, but then I realized I couldn't pull the silver colored part out, so I just went and used our handy dandy little cutter that I had used on the copper piping for the copper J-pole, and just shrunk it down, which it's still at that size now, to cut that off. And I figured, you know, it's aluminum, it's a soft metal, it should work out just fine without any damage to the blade or this itself, and it worked great. So moving on to removing the feathers here on the arrow. So to remove the feather off our arrow shaft, what we're going to do is we're going to use this blade right here. I don't know what the number is that coordinates with this blade. Actually, yes I do. Looks like 21. So look for the number 21 blade. You can see in relation to my finger, it's a pretty thick blade, and it's got the horizontal tip on it. So to remove it, what we're going to do is, now sitting at the bench, I've just got my left hand holding this side of the arrow, right hand holding the blade, and what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of work down at it like this. I'm going to use my hand to turn the arrow shaft like this, so that way my hand with the blade can stay going in one direction. So what we're going to do is, first off, I wouldn't recommend doing this on your leg or you know, on your baby brother or anything like that. You know, we don't want anybody getting hurt. So what you're going to do is, it's kind of like you're chiseling with the blade. You're just kind of working it, you know, down like this. So our point here isn't to necessarily remove everything possible in one try. However, what we do want to do is remove this entire feather. So that's step one. So just kind of do this, and you can see it once the blade gets under under the feather, it'll pretty much keep going. So there we got our feather. Now you can see we still have some of this extra material and this glue here. So if we keep doing the same thing, and this is where turning the arrow shaft, once we get this going a little bit, where turning the arrow shaft comes into play, because then you can get some of the glue that has kind of seeped out from the edges of the feather, and also allows you to get some different angles on trying to get all this off. So the other thing you can do too is, once you go this way so many times, you might start to notice that you just can't seem to catch on anything, even though you see that you still have stuff left. You can also come back this way and you don't, you know, at least with this arrow shaft, you don't have to be too careful. I mean, in regards to your safety, you should be, but as far as what's printed on here, you really don't. I mean, you've even seen me slip a couple times there, and looking on the shaft now, I'm not even seeing any scratches. So the chances of this camouflage, you know, being scraped off, if you are scraping any of this print off, then either A, you've got totally the wrong angle for the blade to be working, or B, you're putting way too much pressure on it. So you know, I'm holding this thing about as light as you possibly can and just letting it glide you know, across the shaft like that. So as you can hear, it's not catching on anything. So I've got, you know, all the glue off, everything is completely smooth, no scratches or anything, so it looks great. So you know, as far as this end goes, I don't know if I'm going to keep that or not. Obviously I'm not going to be shooting this from a bow or anything, but you know, you could just cut this off right there so you had a flat, you know, tip right there. So I'm sure I'll do something. I haven't figured out what yet. So for now, it's staying put. So that's pretty much everything for now. That's how you get rid of the feathers and the glue, you know, without too much hassle. I am going to go ahead and I'm going to be leaving now to go to the machine shop and get those holes drilled. And you know, through the magical wonder of video and video editing, the next time you guys see me, I'll have holes done, which will be in just a second. Well, that was quick. So like I said, it wasn't going to take long at all. Of course, it took me longer than it took you. So here's what we have now, and there was a few minor issues I had come across. First off, we'll go through and I'll show you the holes that I did here before I get to that. So one of the things I noticed when this pattern gets printed on is that there's this kind of line that runs down, because you know the pattern goes all the way around and it doesn't match from edge to edge. So you kind of get this line. I'll see if I can bring it up to the camera here. See if you can see that there's a little line there. So if you can see that, what I did is, before drilling the holes, I made sure that I had matched the lines together from the outer pole in with the inner one. So then that way I knew that if the lines were lined up when I was getting this ready, that my holes would line up when I would put it together to use it as an antenna, and there wasn't a whole lot of guesswork. So as long as I had this line completely lined up, then I know that my holes would line up when I would bring the two in together. Now my holes here in the middle, you may not be able to see them, but they didn't turn out perfect. They're not bad, but I'm kind of one of those guys, I like everything to be perfect. But I think it's doable, so we'll let that be. One of the things I did not account for, and just kind of had to find a way to deal with it, was that when I had both of these completely, the one completely in with the other one to drill my holes, getting them separated was very, very, very hard. So that's something to consider. What I ended up doing is, like I said, I didn't know what I was going to do with this here. So what I ended up doing was using our handy dandy little pipe cutter here, and had to cut the end off. And so once I did that, I had a piece of the smaller, now this is going to be a little bit difficult for me to remove, I had a piece of the smaller arrow shaft laying around, and so what I did is, after cutting off this this part of the bigger pipe, or the bigger part of the arrow shaft, is I took this and I can just insert this into the end to close that up. Now keep in mind that the reason I cut this off was because of the two shafts being stuck together, so I had to come up with some pretty creative ways to separate those. And what I ended up having to do was I used my my X-Acto knife. I took this completely off, the blade and this part of the shaft, and just had the metal part here, and I ended up putting this in there and having to hammer it out this way. So I was able to get it off, and now that it's off, and I've got the holes filed down and cleaned up and all that, everything is back to being perfect again. So there aren't any issues with that. The other issue that I'm having now that I'm seeing this is with that red tip. Now, I have glued this in a couple times. I thought the last time I glued it in, I thought it was going to be in for good. Apparently not. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is probably getting some JB Weld, plastic weld stuff, and putting that just on the very end, you know, and flattening it out and everything. For now, I'm just going to put this on though. But I'll get some JB weld and just plug up that hole, and that should take care of that. So what I'll do here is I'm going to go ahead and quickly put this together so you can see what the antenna looks like together. Then I'll go through some of the measurements and stuff again. You know, like I said, we got a element in here that's 41 inches, so this is just going to be this tire length right now is probably going to be about 42 inches maybe, somewhere around there. And that's when it's extended, it'll be collapsed more when it's being used as an antenna. So I'm going to go ahead and get that set up, and then I will show you guys what this looks like when it's together. Okay, so here we got the antenna. When it's extended and not being used as an antenna, what we're going to do is I've removed the red end, but since this will end up being packed with some of that JB weld, your other option is to remove from this end, or as per the design, is to just go like this and remove the two pieces, and that will reveal the elements in there. And then what we'll do is go ahead and like I said, I've got that line that's on here, so chances are you probably can't see it on the video right now, but I'm going to go ahead and get those lines lined up just so I know I got these lined up right. And the one thing I forgot now that this had popped off is make sure you still have to take off this end, or at least in my case, because there's a little bit that's going to come out just towards the end right there. You probably don't notice it, it's so little, but it is going to push that cap off. So now, looking at this, all my holes are lined up perfectly. So this is how this is going to get put together. So we have the two shorter elements. Those are 19.35 inches. Then we have our element that goes up in the front. This is the full 36, so there's no cutting needed for that one. Then we have our long rear element, which is a total of 41. Now, you may or may not be noticing that the black pieces look a little bit different. And what I did was, you know, I decided to get rid of the plastic pieces I was using altogether. And so I pretty much repeated the process that I did on this one using the heat shrink. And I did that on all of them. So what I did was, I'll show you a little bit closer here. What I did was I cut 1 inch of this .047 hobby wire or music wire, and I put it here, and then I took some of that really small heat shrink I had and cut a little bit more than 1 inch, so probably about 1 inch, maybe 1 inch and 3/10 somewhere in there, and then put that over and then heat shrunk it, and so now it's got a pretty good connection. Doesn't require me to whittle down anything or cut anything. So, and it's been working out pretty good. So I got my hole sized up to that. Now, if you go with .047 wire, you know, if you want something a little bit sturdier, and you go with this wire, the holes that I initially started were using a 2.5. I believe it was a 2.5 millimeter hole. I ended up having to do some pretty serious filing with my round file to get them sized to be able to, you know, take the end here. I would almost say go to 3 millimeter. Unfortunately, I can't verify the actual dimension. I did have a really expensive caliper around here, and since my wife and I have moved into this house, I cannot find it anywhere. So so what's going to happen is when we put this together, the end here is our front and this is the back. Now I know that because I've looked at this enough to know that, but the other way is that you've got this full length here. The end that has the hole closest to the end is your front, and you've got the two here, and then you've got this hole back here, which is a little bit, you know, further away from your front, so, or from the back. But a lot of that could be just in how you measure and place your holes too. So what we're going to do is start with the front. This is the 36 incher, and we're going to put that in there and slide it in there until it looks like it's about halfway, and there could be some filing that I may need to be doing here just to touch up a little. So there's our front element. Then what we do is, it doesn't matter which hole these go into as long as they're placed in one of these holes here. So one is, like I said, I might need to touch up on the filing just a hair. You don't want them too loose and you don't want them too tight, especially if you're going to use heat shrink, because if they are too tight, then what's going to happen is you're going to be forcing them into the hole, and even though the edges there may not be sharp enough that it's cutting us after you file them down a little bit, there are still sharp edges that will cut the heat shrink material over time, and then you're having to do the heat shrink again. Not the end of the world, but just kind of a little FYI. Lastly, this is the rear element. This is our 41 incher. And put that in there. And you can see how I am struggling a little bit here. So like I said, I'm probably going to touch up on my filing just so I don't have to worry about wearing that down. But it is good to have a tight fit. Just make sure that the balance with it being too tight or too loose is you know, right on. So other than getting some cable, I actually called our nearby radio store, or as we call it, our candy shop. They don't have any RG58 in stock right now. They used to sell 15-foot links for only a couple bucks, so when they do get it in stock, I may just swipe up a few piles of that. But the idea behind is, once I do get the cable, the cable's going to run from here down to the end here, and at this end here I'm going to put on a connector. Now this is just for the reason of not having to have 10 or 15 feet where the cable permanently attached to this antenna. I can just screw on a radio to the antenna and, you know, have it be a done deal, so there's not this extra you know, awkwardness to the antenna. So once I do get the antenna on, or the cable on here, it'll be running on, the cable will run down this outer, of course, this outer shaft here, and I'll use a couple zip ties to keep it in place. And then when the cable gets up to this point here, and I separate the shield from the center conductor, one of them will go over to here using an alligator clip. So in that way, when I hook this up, I can just hook up an alligator clip here and an alligator clip there, and we're ready to go once we attach the radio. So when I do that, there's a thing you can make out of plexiglass to keep those alligator clips you know, separated like this, so that way you don't have to worry about them touching or anything. So when I do the cable, I'll create a separate video for that, since I gotta wait a week, you know, and I don't want you guys to have to wait on me I want to be able to get this video out to you guys so you guys can see how to build this antenna. So you can kind of see, you know, how it looks like, you know, up close when I got propped up like that. Other than that, other than getting the cable attached, this is really it. So I'll go back and in reverse, we'll go ahead and disassemble this, and you can kind of see how quick it can be disassembled. So that's our front element, and our middle shorter ones, and the rear. Then we can just put on our cap, or what we're using as a cap right now. I don't know if I'm going to keep this or not. We'll just kind of see how that goes. And then we take our elements here, and I usually just kind of line them up from the bottom. You can either do them one at a time, or you can do all of them at the same time, doesn't matter. And you put them in there. And once you get your cap on, or you have something capped there, I'm just going to use my finger for now, then you can kind of compress it a little bit all the way up until you can feel the end of that 41-inch element. And there you go, that's it. And then what you can do, now I may have to make some alterations to this, but here is my go bag that I did the video for. And so then what you can do is, once you have this, you can stick this in your go bag. And, you know, like I said, I may have to make some alterations to my bag. Maybe I'll just leave it like that, I don't know. You know, once it gets on your back, I don't think that's really going to go too far. So you can stick it in your go bag. You know, I may put a little, oh look, it actually goes all the way through. So I don't have to make any alterations. Well, I will, to be able to hold it in place. So what I can do is I can find a way to make it so that way when I put it in through the top, that this end will hit something or some sort of bottom, or I can just tie it in or something. Either way, it's in my go bag. It's completely, you know, backpackable. I've got my ladder line J-pole that I made in there. I am making a version 2. I don't know for sure if I'm going to have a video for that. The version 2 is just a couple of different improvements of the last one I made. So other than that, that's it for now. So please go ahead and hit the like button. You know, if you like the video, please leave any comments or suggestions, possibly even recommendations. If there's anything you guys have ideas for that you would like to see within reason, you know, I would be more than willing to do the research if it's not something I know about, to be able to bring you guys that information. So also please subscribe if you're interested in the ham radio hobby, or if you like the videos. Again, that's something that just kind of supports me a little bit, and if I see that the interest is there, it keeps me wanting to go and do the videos for you guys. So also thank you to all the subscribers and all the people who have viewed the videos so far. It's great to see that interest. So thank you once again, and hope you enjoy the video. This is KD0 RVY.